Hello and welcome to another episode of Sonic Talk. This is episode 459, recording today live on Wednesday the 17th of August 2016 of your Earth years. I want to say thank you very much to everybody for joining us in the chat room, of which we have a fulsome chat room. I'll say it once and I'll say it again till the day I die. And also, just well, if you're wondering what else this might be on apart from chat rooms, we're streaming on YouTube Live, and want to say welcome to our viewers there. Well, everybody's watching it via that at the moment, but this is a podcast that's to do with music production, electronic musical instruments, studio work, live production, anything to do with making music, the business of making music, opinions about, basically the whole sort of ecosystem surrounding working as or in the audio/music industry. I think that's a rough potted. I don't think I'd submit that for the kind of paragraph that you'd say, I just need 30 words to describe the show, but you get the idea. If you're watching it, it's much easier to hear. So, sorry, that was terrible for SEO if I had written that down. Anyway, I want to say welcome to Mr. Ty Unwin, who is our sole guest this week. Is very kindly one of the busiest men in the world. There in his lovely synth cave, joined us. He's probably fending off very stressed out executive music producers and directors who want to make him to make changes to whatever it is that he's working on at the moment. So, Ty Unwin, how are you?
Exactly in that position, actually. No, it's good. I had a late night's sprays, and but no, things are good. Things are good. Lots on and. Very different things, which is good. That kind of keeps me going. I hate the idea of just doing the same thing day in, day out. So
yeah,
you can appreciate
variety is the spice of life. All of those things.
Absolutely. So no, that's good. Thank you very much.
And
yes, a great introduction.
Oh, well,
great introduction.
Thank you. You're very kind. I suppose we'd also say just a big up to the Great Britain Olympic team, who I think have surpassed 50 medals on the table, and somehow, for a nation of 50 million, are in second in the table against massive countries with huge budgets. So good for them. I've been sort of I don't know if anybody's interested in the Olympics. I'm not especially, but I tell you what I have discovered. Hockey is really exciting to watch, and that was about it, though. That's probably my only revelation. Have you had any? This is way off topic, but there's only two of us, so you have to excuse us.
I love the Olympics, and the reason I love them is the same reason I love the World Cup or Euro, kind of whatever, is the fact that it's great to work to, because I spend so long in here that kind of human contact is somewhat limited some of the time. And I always have to have I have something moving in the studio all the time just to feel as if I am actually alive and there are people in the room. And so I always have a monitor on with just random TV on. And the great thing about the Olympics it's just perfect because it's just on all the time. And because of the time difference with Rio, it means that it's kind of right until 4 o'clock in the morning, which is my kind of time. And you don't have to have the sound turned up. You just watch people running and jumping and
diving,
swimming and diving, and it's great. I love it. So well done, GB, because unbelievable.
It is
for a little place.
It is amazing.
Unbelievable. So
it's amazing how we can be so politically untogether, yet our sport seems
politically gone the screws. But I mean,
anyway, I'll try and keep it on track. I promise everybody. Yes, so this week, what's been happening this week? Well, there's a few interesting things. Let me see what's first in the list. The Dreadbox Murmux 2. This was something that you mentioned, and I'm sure, have I not got I thought I had here we are. This actually looks really awesome, I have to say. I don't know if I can make that image bigger. I expect I can, yeah. This is Dreadbox have announced a version 2.
This is proper gear lust on my part.
Now to me...
This is something that...
Yeah, sorry, carry on. We can't lose.
Oh, I'm back.
You're back. He froze for a moment. So Dreadbox, I don't know if anybody knows. Well, I mean, I'm a fan of the Dreadbox Erebus. It's got a lot of character. We did a Meet the Makers with Yanis from Dreadbox at Music Messer. I think I posted it a few weeks ago. And there's just something about the sound. It's got a kind of charisma. And this is a kind of all new design as far as I could tell, because the Murmux was much less. This has got 3 VCOs plus a kind of, I guess, some sort of hypersaw type VCO, which is VCO 4. It's got multi-mode filter. It's got great patching. It's got loads, and it's also got has it got the digital delay on it as well? I can't see that. I thought it did. Yes, it has the echo as well. They said they were going to make 50 of these, sold out absolutely instantly, $14.99, and it's got that kind of when Dreadbox first appeared on the scene, they had this kind of soft furnishing kind of casing, so they got this like herringbone tweedy type stuff, which might not work so well in a gig situation after a few gigs and a few spillages. But this is I have to ask you, Ty, they sold out. Are you going to be the recipient of one of these? Assuming you haven't just paused. You've paused in thought there. We've lost him. That's one of the problems with only having a single guest, because then I have to tread water and figure out. But I have to say, this does look really pretty good. Ty, did you order one?
Hello.
Hello. Can you hear?
Sorry.
That's all right. We'll have you. We'll have you. Did you get?
Do you want my audio, or shall I try and let me just try something very quickly. I'm going to take out the video camera and try something. Just go back to old school. Is that all right?
Yeah, sure. That's no problem.
I will do that.
So I don't know what's going to happen here. Whether we're going to let's just mute that a second. But they were really excited. I got an email because I wrote an email because I was trying to find some video stuff just to see whether or not there was any video for this, which I couldn't find any video, obviously, because they haven't made these yet, or they have made them. They've done a pre-order of 50, which they've sold out, which ain't bad. That's like 75 grand, and they were blown away by just how many and how much interest there was in this. And I have to say, I'm looking at this thing because I've got the Dreadbox Erebus, which I do like, and this thing looks really nice. 3 LFOs. Let's see, I think we have a tie coming back. 3 LFOs, 2 envelopes by the looks of things. Let's see if we can get him back. Are you there, Ty? Not at the moment. I think we're trying to reconnect right now, so let's see how we get on. Oh, this is fun. Oh, no, he's gone. So it might be just me then. Right, well, I'm sorry for this if you are looking forward to a load of guests. As you can imagine, in the summer, it's quite difficult to bring everybody together. Lots of people travelling, lots of people doing festival gigs. Gaz is doing gig. People who have been working a lot hard are doing it in holiday season, so that's the way it crumbles sometimes. So I'm just waiting to see if Ty will come back online. But yeah, this Murmux, I don't know if they're going to go into a wider production. I do hope so, because it does look like it's $14.99 US. So it's not particularly cheap synthesizer, but if it's got any of the character of the Erebus, then I think we're into something quite special. What are the differences between this and the original? Here we go. We have Mr. Ty again. Yes, I can hear you.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that'll do.
Sorry, it's this is just me on an iPad now.
That's all right. If that works, I'm happy. Okay. I have to ask, because you're normally a gentleman who will take a punt on a pre-order type of thing. Did you buy one of these?
Yes.
When's it going to come?
Middle of September, apparently. There's a reason for this. This is absolute gear lust, because I don't know what you've just been saying. I'm sure you've been kind of singing lyrical about the Erebus. And I've got an Erebus, and there's something very special about it. Very special about. Do you know what? I have a feeling if you shoved one of these through an oscilloscope, I think they're probably one of the most imperfect synths in terms of oscillators and filters and whatever. But there's something about them that's very raw and has a huge amount of character for a little £350, kind of box of tricks. And
I mean, the thing that I found with it, I have to say, because I took one up I did some Golf Rap sessions earlier in the month, and obviously they've got everything, loads of synths, and it's all about the sound. And I just took this up and plugged it in, and I was listening to it on their speaker system, which is not the same as I've got here, and the girth and the weight and the depth of the oscillators it's up there with everything. It competed absolutely no problem. It was perfectly happy amongst all of those really high end things.
I stuck it against my System 55, and it's completely different, but it's in the same ballpark. I mean, it really is a fantastic synth. And so I saw about this Murmux, the V2, because I wasn't really aware of the V1, to be honest with you.
No, it was one of the first ones that came out, and it kind of, because I think with the Erebus is when it really, it went big. So the stuff that was before that, and also I think it's discontinued, the version 1.
It is discontinued. And then so I saw this on Friday, I think it was, and suddenly got very excited about it, and then started contacting people, and exactly like you said, that they're all gone. They're now sold out. I think a handful, maybe 2 or 3, something like that, came into the UK. And well, actually, that's a lie. I know things, but basically, I've got one, and if someone really does desperately want one, I know someone that has one.
Is this a Murmux version 1 or a version?
No, version 2. This is the V2.
Right.
So there is one still available that basically it's a very long story, but to cut along, I basically was trying so desperately to get one. Having got one of the other people I'd contacted had said, we've reserved one for you as well. And when I said, I'm sorry, I've got one now, they said, and I said, look, get it anyway, buy it, because you'll sell it just like that. So if someone is really desperate for one, I know where there will be a spare one.
I know where there's a Murmux too. Wow, that's
basically. But yeah, I've got one on the way, and it looks. This is proper gearless for me. This is really exciting.
I know I guess that's saying something, because I mean, as we know, you've got a lot of synthesizers because we've talked about this before, because you're doing a lot of cues for music and period drama or science or documentaries and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And obviously, with your way of working, the amount of synths that you can actually use must be quite limited, because it has to come straight back. It has to be, and yet, have you found a place for? Do you make exceptions? I suppose is the answer, was what I'm asking. It's like, well, I'm going to use this, even though I know it might not come back exactly the same if I need to change the cube. I've just got to use it.
Yeah, there are certain things that you have to make. I have to do that. I kind of commit it fairly early on, and obviously all the synths with presets, that's fine. But all of the kind of stuff about memories, I kind of have to make a decision. Well, look, I'll try to hold the patch as long as I can, until it gets used for something else. But I'm there with photo. It's not like it used to be. I just photograph everything and make studious notes of trying to get a sound back. And quite often you never quite get it back the same. But if something is that special, it needs to be heard. So but yeah, a lot of the time, don't get me wrong. A lot of the stuff I do, I could get away with having a fraction of this amount of synths. But the reality is, I use them. I have them because I can, and I do use them all the time when I can. But at the end of the day, it's also the fact that it is, I genuinely have gear lust. But gear lust is something which, we can go to a whole new topic with this. But it's something that when I was younger, I used to have loads of. But now there's something about the way the industry, especially a few years ago, where having that yearning for synths just kind of disappeared, if that makes sense. It's just. Have you had a similar thing? Kind of where you go through stages where there are stages where you look at everything and want everything, and there are other stages where you'll look at and just go,
I don't want
anything.
Nothing. Well, as a reviewer, it's very different, because a lot of the time you're reviewing things that you might not necessarily want, or you think you might want, and then you realise actually this isn't for me. But then you still have to create an impression of how you might use it, and try and I like to try and adopt anything that I'm reviewing and use it in some form of creativity.
Yes.
Creative aspect, so that that there's that connection with it. So if you can't find anything to be creative with something, then that becomes difficult, and you can get a bit jaded. And I think that I think that actually Erebus is probably one of the things recently that has rekindled that to a certain extent. Although there are other synths as well that do that. It's not just for that. So there are other aspects too. And there we go. That's Ty's latest frozen pose. Well, I'm very excited that he's managing to get one, and that is going to be. I'm going to have to come and visit for that. I mean, I couldn't justify spending £1,000 on a mono synth at the moment. Although I guess if it's got 4 oscillators, the chances are it's going to be 4-voice paraphonic, because that actually is one of the things that the Airbus does have. It's 2-voice paraphonic, but you can address the oscillators separately, so you can have. Lines don't have to follow each other with an interval. They can be completely separate. Obviously, they will share the actual the filter and what have you. So that's another loss of Ty. That's going to be interesting. Well, let's see if we can move on to another topic, because we have established that he is in fact going to get one, and it's not going to be all that long. Where are we about what's the date? 17th, so about a month he's going to get it, if it's all well and good. That sounds pretty good. I'm sorry, I am peddling a little bit. It's quite disconcerting when you're the only guest and the other one is probably desperately trying to get back online. We need to probably try and figure out a way to get Ty some better internet. But I think the problem is because he's in the sticks. That's where his studio is, up somewhere in the Cotswolds. So, are you back? Oh, he was nearly for a moment. Let's try audio only for a while and just see if that helps us, because it's quite difficult to maintain the pace. Let's see. Right, okay. Oh, no, that's better. Are you going somewhere closer to your interweb action? Oh, no, he's gone again. Awesome. Okay, I can't go full screen because he's not there anymore. Okay. Maybe the thing to do then, at this point, which is rather disastrous, is to... hold on, you have to excuse me a second. I'm getting a bit flustered now. I normally can keep it together, but usually there's a other guest involved who can actually assist with the spaces. Yes, too much interference from all the synths. You could well be right there. Actually, that would be quite something if that were the case, wouldn't it? Stop motion Sonic talk show. Yes, it is a bit like an animation special. Right. Maybe the thing to do then is I'm going to do let's do an ad, because at least we can get that in. This is from iZotope. Presumably that'll work as well. Hold on, I've just got too many Mises and windows open. This, of course, is iZotope's vocal synth plugin, which offers you many ways to process your voice. Polyvox for harmonies. Regular vocoder. CompuVox. All in one plugin. Of course, you can download your free demo at iZotope.com/vocal-synth. And not only that, but we have a competition. We asked you last week when we did our little DeepMind special. I want to say thanks to Alat for that again. That was great. We asked you to tweet the hashtag, what was it? Outside the Vox and Vocal Synth 2 at Sonicstate. And we got a winner. The winner is M. Phillips, also known as Phided1. That's PHAYDED 1. At Phided_1, the word one, and he said, I wonder if Behringer will develop variations of DeepMind after the current feedback? That's a very good question. We know that they're talking about a desktop concept, and I suspect that now with all of this success that they've had, it will spur them on, or hopefully to make some more things, assuming that this turns out to be as good as everybody is hoping it will be. Anyway, you have won a copy of iZotope Vocal Synth. If you want to try your hand to win one this week, we're asking you to tweet the hashtag TalkBoxLove, that's one word, TalkBoxLove, and the hashtag Vocal Synth to @Sonicstate and @iZotope Inc. That's the hashtag TalkBoxLove and the hashtag Vocal Synth to @Sonicstate and @iZotope Inc. And you will be picked next week as a potential winner. Let's see, do we have some audio from Ty?
Have you got me?
I've got audio. Let's stick with that. That'll do for me, and we'll just go with that. That's all right. That's really no problem. I appreciate you being a solo guest. Normally, because we've got more guests, it's easy, we can cover these kind of things. But when it's one-on-one, it's a bit trickier. But don't worry, I haven't lost any bodily functions from the stress or anything. I'm doing all right. I'm not sure if I lost any more hair. Perhaps you could tell. I don't think so. But anyway, so I'm pleased to say that you are. I mean, it's fantastic that you're getting hold of one, and I'm hoping they're going to make more of them. I mean, I hope this one-off, because I think I said earlier that's 75 grand they've got in pre-orders. So hopefully, I mean, in Greece that might go a long way, because as we know. So yeah.
I mean, fingers crossed. I mean, it looks far too awesome to just make 50 of them. I think they've got to have some common sense at some point and go, hang on a minute. So fingers crossed.
Well, when I spoke to Yanis at the guy from Dreadbox, the sort of head honcho, he said that they sold about 2,000 Erebus, which is a pretty big number for a small company like that. So yeah. Good on them. Yeah. Right, let's see what next we've got. Yes, here we are. New Launchpad Pro firmware, scales mode, which this is a great demo, I think, anyway.
This powerful automatic instrument has all the same characteristics, only on a much larger scale.
A new instrument with which you will be placed under hypnosis. How do you do that? Well, there are many ways and methods.
Listen to this.
A 90s breakbeat vibe. It gets all a bit ethnic later on. Whoever this guy has done some great. But it's interesting to see someone playing something a bit more virtuosic. Keyboard-like.
I want to be the master, not only of one world, but of worlds.
I thought it was a great demo, but this is the news that the Launchpad Pro has had a new firmware update, which adds a whole lot of functionality, and I think in fact Circuit's getting more scales as well. And I mean, what this came out, this is great, and it's quite interesting that it's coming out for a kind of grid-based controller. So, but the other thing that was really more interesting to me was the fact that what they've done is they've gone for this kind of hardware host, and just they've been pumping out the firmware updates for all of their stuff recently, and I think that's just a really commendable thing. I wonder if this perhaps is going to be a new form factor. I mean, we've talked about this before a little bit, a more generic thing, and then you just keep adding features and keep adding things, and you have sort of brilliant minds coming up with ways together with the users that go, hey, what if you could do this and do that? And it's all about the operation and the operability. I don't know what you think about that, Ty. I mean, I don't know if you're a Novation user in terms of grid-based stuff. I can't remember whether you've said you are or not.
I mean, I've got a Launchpad Pro, but I mean, I absolutely very, very limited use of it. I'm a push 2 user, and I think in terms of, exactly what you said about Novation and the way they treat their products and they update their products is absolutely commendable. And I think it's, they've always been at the forefront of actually keeping things moving and keeping things changing. I mean, from my point of view, this update, even though I've got a, Launchpad Pro, isn't of really that much interest, because I think you and I both agree that, essentially we're keyboard players, and so a keyboard does a perfectly good job of sounding like a keyboard. And if I want to play a keyboard line, I'll use a keyboard. But
yeah, that makes sense.
It's like kind of relearning stuff for me. Whereas if you're not a keyboard player and you're more pad orientated, I mean, what a great update! and also the fact that you can change the scale. So essentially, in theory, as long as you keep it basic, you can't make a mistake. So all of that kind of thing is fantastic. And that combined with, as you say, the fact that Novation are one of those companies that do keep updating their stuff, which is, that there's a lot of companies that don't do that, mentioning no names, Roland. And, and it's sad because a lot of people then are stuck with stuff that they're just waiting for the version 2 or they'll just drop it.
Well, I suppose economically it makes more difference if you can put somebody a different bit of hardware. I mean, there must be a point where it's like, well, if we could sell enough of the hardware to make a version 2, or we just make the hardware and make enough updates so that people will buy whatever that, the solid piece of hardware is. I mean, there's probably a tipping point, isn't there, where it makes sense. Although, I must have to say, though, Ty, I mean, you are overlooking the fact that Roland have added CC control to the boutiques with the 1.1. And that is quite a big deal because I don't feel, when I reviewed them, the thing with the boutiques, and I know you've got them, is certainly on the JP08, it's so hard to find those little sweet spots on those, particularly if you've got big hands. I mean, I've got quite small hands, and I found it quite difficult to find those points. Yep. But now they've added CC mode, so they'll spit out CC and they'll receive CC. So that means that you could use a larger format controller to kind of get in there. Is that a firmware from Roland that excites you? I'm sure it must be.
Of course it is. Yeah. That is. I mean, I'm not wanting to come down on Roland and pick them out in particular. It's just they're quite well known for not completely following up their updates, but this is a fantastic update. This is essentially, I mean, I said ages ago, this was the one thing that they had to do, really, if it was doable. I mean, I'm not technical from that side of things. I didn't know if it was doable. I imagined it would be. The fact that they've done it is brilliant, because that's a big thing for those boutiques. And I mean, I know a lot of people that have kind of hung out on buying them almost for that reason and that reason alone. And but now, I mean, kind of the world's your oyster when it comes to, if you're thinking what you can do with it. Honestly, I still go back to the boutiques. If they'd upped the polyphony, that would have pooed all over us so much stuff. Why are they stuck with the 4? That's still the only thing about the boutiques. If they'd gone up to 6, that would have, 6 or 8. That would have really been.
I'm just showing the pictures of the boutique in case people don't know what we're talking about. These are sort of teeny tiny little sort of pocket-sized versions of DSP and ACB modelled versions of some of their classic synths. You've got the JU06, which actually is remarkably close to the Juno, and the JP08, which is, I don't know how close that was, but it's got some enhancements, and also the JX3P. Is that 3P?
They're basically these, for the money that these shouldn't be able to sound so close to the originals. They do. They are very good, very, very good for the money. But it's there were only the two things. It was the limited polyphony and the fact it couldn't take MIDI CCs. But now they've got over the kind of that one. It just becomes a lot more versatile. It's
a shame that wasn't done at the beginning, as you say, because I mean that would have made a lot more sense. One thing I was going to ask though is, so if you're using something else to control them with, what is it that you would use? I mean, do you have a generic controller, or do you have a fader on your master keyboard that you would use to control that, or would you use software? I mean,
I've still got. I mean, I've got lots of ways of in terms of faders and sliders and things, as well as I've got things like a complete control, and I've got Novation SL keyboards, but I've also got a Control Freak. Do you remember the old Kenton Control Freak?
Gosh, yeah.
I've got a Kenton Control Freak 16 that's plugged into my MIDI interface. That's how far that one goes back. And then I've got things like Kurzweil, I can't remember what it's called now, the Kurzweil ribbon controller, whatever that was called. I've got one of those, which is, again, so in terms of controllers, I got that. And
there we go, there's the Kenton Control Freak. Very nice.
There you go. I've got the 16-channel version of that.
Have you have you used it so long you've worn the sharp edges off the case yet?
They are deadly. They are absolutely deadly. But the other thing that I've got is I've got one of Kent's. I've got one of the touch controllers that I know Rich has got as well for the
Imposca, right?
The nice thing about that is, kind of you can start playing with that, and kind of because that I think it follows the same kind of format. I know that I've set up some things with other soft synths that have worked using that. So fingers can, I haven't done the download yet. I've been so busy. I had a chance to do the Roland download, but hopefully, I just can't wait to get my teeth into it. I mean, and I think that's the difference now. You can really get your teeth into it, because I suffer from the same problem as you. I've got fat fingers. I am sausage fingers, and the fact that it can get over that will be brilliant, especially with the JP-08, which, as you say, finding the sweet spot was impossible.
Yeah, really difficult. And it's. So, are you using these in productions then? I mean, are they showing up? I mean, because you've got some of the, you've got. I don't know if you've got any. You haven't got an original JP-8, have you? So
no. If I'm totally honest, they've not been used in anything in earnest. No, they haven't. They basically form part of my travelling rig, and
okay.
And what tends to happen with my travelling rig is. I mean, I'll kind of mock things up on it, and then basically when it gets back into the proper studio, then I kind of sit there, and most of it, I have to say, gets replaced with, higher end synths. But if I didn't, put it like this, if I didn't have the posher synths and I had to rely on these, it would still
work.
It would still be fantastic, yeah.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, that's another interesting thing. I mean, because people sort of say, "Why do you need so many synths?" And part of it is, I think to a degree, each thing has its own interface, which means that you have muscle memory for or kind of headspaces that you occupy when you go to it. I'm looking for this kind of thing, and creatively, that's not so easy to replace with a software interface or something that does everything. So I mean, I'm guessing there's an element of that to it as well. If you turn to your Andromeda or your 008 or your modal or whatever it may be, it's because it occupies a kind of creative space that you would then know that
It is, and I write differently depending on what synth. I will play differently depending on what synth I've got in front of me, and the interface alongside it, exactly as you say. And it's not even just muscle memory; it's also the things that, because people turn around exactly like you've just said and say, "Why do you need so many synths?" Well, you don't need so many synths, but the reality is that everything in this studio, everything earns its space. Because it does something differently, or I interact with it differently, or there's something that it earns its place because of that. And I've done this right from day one, right from when I very first started with kind of synths. I would choose my synths that they would, a lot of the time, they'd only do one or two things ridiculously well, but I had to have them for that one thing, if that makes sense. That one or two things that it did really well. It's like everyone used to use Mini Moogs for bass lines because it does bass incredibly well. It's that kind of principle. And so the idea of when workstations came into being, I really resisted workstations for a long time. The only workstation I've ever had is the Oasis, which I have to say, as workstations go, it's kind of, it's less of a workstation. It's just more of a mothership. And so the Oasis is, the only workstation I've ever had, because the idea of something that does everything doesn't really appeal to me, because I know if I want a particular kind of sound, I will go to a particular kind of synth. So that's why they all earn their place. I mean, and this is why, whether it's something really expensive or something really cheap, it makes no difference if it does something really well. I mean, I've said so many times before that, kind of the M Audio Venom, everyone that walks in here that knows anything about synths, that or maybe an AM1X just kind of looks at it and goes, why have you got that in here when it's next to the company that it's next to?
I've just put an image of you up just rather than your Skype thing. I hope that's acceptable. I don't know if it's at your current studio. Yeah, I know what you mean about that. I mean, that I think that there's a very valid point about that. And so that was another question. So if it has to earn its keep, what was the last synth you sacked from your setup? And was it just because you needed the space for something else?
It's always because I need the space for something else. Always. There's no other reason other than for the, kind of having the, kind of trying to get space. And the last synth I got rid of was one of the JD800. So I still got one JD800, but one of those had to kind of give way. I have to say the AM1X may have seen its last time in here. And a K5000S, which I love, but there's just not room for it anymore. But when I say they get taken out of the studio, it doesn't mean they get sold. It just means they get taken out of the studio
and stored.
So they're stored. But but the Venom, the Venom was. I have to say, the Venom was going to go because something else was arriving, and the Venom was going to go. And then I literally just had an evening with it and just thought, my God, no, I can't let go of this because it's cheap, it's plasticky, it's nasty, and it does something very specific and very unlike other stuff.
I have to say, I was very fond of the Venom. I mean, it was flawed in many ways. I remember it was like under DSP. I felt so sorry for the designer because obviously he came up with this great synth engine and then got absolutely, when it came down to the bill of manufacture and parts, they obviously just squeezed it to keep the manufacture cost down, and it got hamstrung a little bit. But I used it, and I remember sitting on the kitchen table. I was working on. Somebody rang me up and said, "We need some parts for a remix." It was Marilyn Manson or so. It was like a really kind of big artist, and I was like, "Oh my God, what have I got?" And I had my laptop, and I had a Venom and a pair of headphones. And they sent me an MP3 of the multi-track, so I had all these stems in MP3. So I put because it was before we had high bandwidth, so I had like 3 or 4 stems of the multi-track, and I just enhanced it with the Venom, sent the stuff back, and they went, "Yeah, great." And I was like, "Wow," that was, and that made me think, well, it's got something about it because it was so aggressive, wasn't it? But also, it was one of the first virtual synths to have. Was it a 7-bit filter cut off? And it really made a difference, didn't it?
Yeah, it absolutely made a difference, and it's still no matter how many times I think, of all in the company, it should maybe have its last day, and it's just it's fantastic. It does what it does. It just everything sounds, as you say, aggressive, and I always describe it as sounding like plastic. If you imagine, it sounds plasticky in a really creative way. And some of did you try any of the distorted drum kits on it and whatever? They're brilliant.
I can't remember. I think I might have done.
And the one thing I can't say a lot apart from watch this space. Not only in terms of the Venom. Just watch this space.
Oh,
something may be happening. Something may be happening.
Venom.
So,
and who was the guy? Venom designer. I'm trying to remember. He was a really nice bloke. Venom.
Was it his Japanese guy?
Yes, Venom. Venom synth designer. I'm just trying to think who it was. Because it was really oh gosh, I feel terrible for not remembering it. Because he's in recent time. I think he's been working on synths for the guys who do. Gosh, my memory is completely gone. What's that? The Traction. I think he's been working on some stuff for them, and he's a really talented guy. And and I remember at the time with the M Audio, all the people in M Audio are really excited. They say this thing sounds amazing, and it did sound amazing for the time as well. And it's still got something. It's one of those ones that's a bit of a future classic. I seem to recall the one because I ended up hanging on to mine, and I think I lent it to a guitar editor. Because he needed something to just work with, and I must try and get that back because I think it's a bit of a future classic. Personally,
I think you're right.
Oh, yeah. That's not you anymore, is it? That's you. There we are. Thank goodness that wasn't an embarrassing Google search result. There we go. Anyway, right, okay. So that was the what was it? It was Novation's firmware update. That's right. So there we got that. Let's jump over to.
Go for Adapitverb.
All right, I was actually about to do that, so I'm going to do that. Here we go. This is another product from Zynaptiq, who come up with this amazingly unique set of products, and this is called Adapitverb, and it's essentially an intelligent harmonic shifting reverb. Shimmerish, but it uses the input notes to create beautifully lush reverbs. I'll stop talking. You can listen. It might translate over Skype and YouTube. I'm not going to play it all, but this is it's basically a very interesting. I'm using that word a lot today, but there are a lot of interesting things about it. I know Taiho Yamada. That's right. Who's the guy from Venom? Yes, thank you very much, chat room. The super brain has spoken. So yes, this is the Zynaptiq Adapitverb. It's available now, and I think it's on offer till September 30th, $149 US, 159 euros. But the thing that really got me about this was they've got a parameter called, well, there's two things. One, they've got a parameter called the Bionic sustain reverb algorithm, which I think anything that's got the word Bionic in it is okay by me. But the other thing is it's got a freeze algorithm. But what you can do is you can build up these freeze textures, which you do by sending notes in and letting it sustain. But you can save the textures as presets. So you can record. I guess it works by taking a sample and it recreates. So you can call it back. So it becomes like and that is really exciting, because usually with freeze reverbs, it's gone, you record it, and that's it. You never get it back because it's almost impossible to remake. But this, I thought that is a genius idea. What do you think?
There are two companies that blow my mind on a regular basis. One is Solemnity with Melodyne, and the other one is Zynaptiq. And if ever there was a case of someone wrote a product, or wrote a program or a plugin that I want, and I wish I'd written it, this is it. I mean, obviously, from what you've described, you've played with it.
I haven't. No, I haven't. I've been reading, and I was just thinking. I just thought, wow, that sounds like a great idea.
Honestly, it is the best. Is it £149 or dollars or whatever it is? I think it's $149. Whatever, it is the best $149. If you write ambient kind of music or something of that ilk, and you like reverb, this is a big thing. It is the best money you will spend in a long time, because I'm a big reverb freak. I use a lot of reverb, and I have a big collection of different reverbs for different uses. But the way that this works is just unlike anything else, really, and it's a cross between, as you say, the freeze program, which is fantastic, but it got a lot of kind of eventide, kind of H3000 kind of feel to it, or and then a more eventide black hole with a whole load of kind of all the shimmer sounds like a lexicon, and But the main thing going for it is the fact that as you change key, as you move around, you don't get the blurring. This is the thing.
Does it change the key of the existing tails, the ones that are still there?
Yes. Well, basically, what it seems to do is it seems to basically almost. I don't know the technology because I've just used it on a project that I'm on, and so if you're going to ask me how it technically works, I haven't got the foggiest. All I know is I'm sitting there twiddling knobs and changing parameters, and it's doing amazing things, which essentially. It sounds like the notes that if you change chords and any of the notes in the reverb clash with what you're going to, it basically fades them down, and then it seems to kind of fade back up again with the shift. So basically,
is that from pitch analysis or MIDI input?
This is pitch analysis.
Wow.
So I mean, I don't know what you can hear now. I mean, I've got. You tell me if you can hear this.
Yeah.
Can you hear that?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is, if I turn up the sustain on the reverb.
The Bionic sustain, I think you mean?
The Bionic sustain. There we go. Can you hear the Bionic sustain?
I can.
If I now change, and see the E, the original note, is started to fade. If I now change key and I go to something like B flat,
not quite picking that up. It's gating a little bit, but yeah, I take your point. Yeah. That's okay. Yeah, I can see why that I can see why that would work.
It's the most, you get the most amazing kind of drones and shimmer, and it's just like a good old, kind of Lexicon Infinite Hall setting. The difference is that as you're moving the key around, as you're changing, it's following what you're doing, and it's just amazing. It's like having an instant pad machine behind anything you play.
That's nice.
It's beautiful. It's absolutely.
So I think I'm beginning to understand why you're up till 4 o'clock in the morning, because you start playing something with that and you're just off. I'd imagine you lose hours.
Hours and hours and hours and hours. I was trying to get a job done, and I was using this because it just fitted so perfectly. And I think I probably could have finished the track at about 1 in the morning, and I was still there at 4, just going, well, no, but I could just, I'll just tinker with it a bit more. It's beautiful.
How is it on? Really, how's the CPU?
Not the best. There's also one thing that you should be aware of is the fact that, because obviously it has to analyze the signal coming in. So in terms of latency, there are 2 modes. You have the reverb itself takes a while to be analysed and chucked out, and depending on which of the blocks you use, it depends on the what latency there is, but it adds quite a lot. So if you only use 1 block, it can be like about 4,000 samples. Which is a lot. And if you're using all 3 of the blocks with the analysis, so you get the really sophisticated stuff, it can add up to like more than 11,000 samples.
Wow! But you can can you track freeze that and get and bring that back down? So once it's recorded,
yeah. What it's got a live mode. So essentially, you click the live mode, which means, so just so you know, so your DAW will automatically adjust if you have it in normal mode, which means that all of a sudden, any channel that's using this as a send, when you play it, you will get 11,000 sample delay just on that channel. Okay.
Wow.
Which is, it's unusable. So what they do is they've got a live mode. You switch to the live mode, so which means the initial instrument that you're playing will be with no latency. The reverb itself will still be 11,000 samples late, but then when you freeze it, or when you then just play it back rather than playing live, it will, and you switch it out of live mode back into normal mode, everything will be in order. It's just a kind of workaround, because it obviously needs time to do the analysis.
Yeah, well, but
my God, is it worth it? It is beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
Oh, right, that's a top. I'm still. I think I was talking about it with Gaz. It's like somebody needs to make a viable hardware host for this kind of stuff, so that you can just take it out somewhere and use these kind of amazing plugins. I mean, I would guess if it's struggling on, you must have a multi-core monster. I suppose it's not going to work so well in that scenario, but.
But it's not. I mean, it's not awful for CPU, but obviously there's a lot going on. But I have to say that Zynaptiq, I've got most of their plugins. They do things that are just not really doable, and that's why I love them, because almost every plugin that they bring out, you do just sit there going, but how can you do that? How? I mean, when Unveil came out, kind of de-reverbing now has become more commonplace. But when Unveil came out, that just didn't exist. How could you take reverb off stuff?
Oops, I just realised I was adjusting I suppose so. I mean, those are the sort of things that were that was actually a preview of the next topic, which I guess we've got. But if you want to check that out, Zynaptiq.com. Zynaptiq is ZYN. aptiq.com, and their stuff is I think he's Danish, isn't he? The guy behind it, or is it
actually.
French? Maybe French. I can't remember now. I have spoken to him a few times. I was hoping. I think they were showing some preview of this perhaps at Music Messer, but it was so loud there. He just said, "I can't do the demo because I can't actually hear what I'm doing." And it's a shame. I would like to check it out. But anyway, let's take a look at. They've got one other thing, because this is Yves Usson, who is the guy behind the Steiner Parker kind of implementation of the Mini Brute. Has posted some demos on Dailymotion of the Matrixbrute. And this is the sequencer. But the thing that I've liked about these demos is they're the most musical ones I've heard. But the other thing, I won't play it, but there was another demo in there which was showing the way that the split voices works, because it's got, I don't know, is it 3 oscillators? I think it's 3 oscillators, and you can split the keyboard so that you can have actually 2 separate voices. So one could be playing the arpeggiator, one could be playing a top line, and you could split the filters as well, because it's got 2 filters. So you can actually create 2 independent synth voices. And that looks this is the first time I'm starting to kind of get the Matrixbrute thing, and it's just a real shame that obviously it hasn't actually come out yet, because I think we were being told June, July. Obviously that's gone past. I mean, as often goes with ambitious hardware projects, we're more than used to this kind of thing, and Arturia, I think, had similar problems with the last hardware thing they announced. I think it was the audio interface. So, which I don't even know if that's even available yet. But the point is, I'm starting to see the potential of this thing. I did email the Arturia guys to see if there was anybody around, but it's France and it's August and they're all on holiday for the month. Is a Matrixbrute something that you're going to be looking at? I can't imagine why you wouldn't. It's impressive, and B, some of the possibilities look fabulous in that thing. Yeah,
I mean, I said kind of from day one about the Matrixbrute. Yeah, it's my kind of synth, really. I love the Mini Brute, and the thought of having one with all the matrix possibilities and the modulation possibilities and 3 oscillators, and still have the Steiner Parker filter and all of that. I mean, it makes it, great. I think the biggest mistake, I was meant to see one. One was meant to be coming my way a couple of months ago, and because one did come via the UK, but it was still a kind of prototype, and apparently wherever it was shown, because they were going to kind of give it me to just have a look at, and but they, I mean, people know that I will try and be critical and honest about these things, and I think they kind of realise it wasn't really in any fit state to. No,
I think that because we've seen a couple of things at trade shows, and it doesn't seem like it's been really ready, and it feels. Oops, that's about to play. But
I think the sad part about this is the fact that I feel I genuinely do feel sorry for Arturia about this, because they should have. Every company is under pressure when it comes to trade shows to deliver something new and shiny and get everyone excited, and that's great. But at the same time, that then has to be a certain kind of reality about when it's going to be finished and when it's going to be ready. I mean, years gone by, I remember when Alesis announced the Quadrasynth. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
Do you remember the Quadrasynth? And they announced it, and then I don't think it actually appeared for I don't even know how long. I mean, it was forever before it actually appeared. And by the time it actually appeared, people had kind of got bored of it, really, because they'd heard so much about it and they'd been promised so much about it. Same, to be fair, same with the Andromeda, really. That was announced and then took forever to appear. And I really wish that Arturia just kind of kept this one under wraps and just
for a bit longer. Yeah, I see what you mean.
Because the thing is now, the problem they've got is that it's still not ready. Hopefully they're now talking about is it next month or maybe October? They're still talking about September. And then you've got, kind of Behringer coming along, and everyone seems to be full of, well, that's it now for the Matrixbrute, because Behringer are going to come along and they're going to poo all over.
Very, very different, though. Very different.
They're completely different. Anyone that knows anything about synths knows that these are completely different synths. Not particularly aiming at different people, but their role within the synth world is completely different. And Arturia are going to have to kind of do a lot of... but the common denominator is that both companies don't have a great reputation for build quality or reliability. I mean, I've got an Origin, an Arturia Origin.
Oh wow! So you bought it?
Yeah, I was that one person, and mine's been absolutely fine. Now I know there are a lot of people who have had lots of faults with it. I know there are lots of people that have had lots of problems with mini brutes. I've had no problems with Arturia stuff at all. And I kind of hope that it's going to be the same with this, because it looks like it could be a fantastic synth. And I think the problem is that when it was announced, there weren't any... Well, it wasn't ready. When people were trying to show the features, half the features didn't work.
Yeah, they couldn't see anything, yeah.
They couldn't say, and I'm kind of with you. I think in terms of what it looks like, in terms of what it promises... From day one, when they first announced it, it looked incredible. But everything I heard from it was just so unimpressive.
Yeah.
And I think finally now, there are some things coming out that are just making you go, yes, all those things that were promised, it can actually do. I think if you want it to be an all singing or dancing synth, this isn't that kind of synth. But if you want something with a lot of...
Oh yeah, you get lost in this thing, wouldn't you? I mean, I guess the thing is, in many ways, both Behringer and Arturia are in the same boat, except Behringer, we hope, have brought all this stuff closer to the time it's going to be in the shop. I mean, it's still not here yet, so I mean, who knows? I mean, all sorts of things can happen in manufacture that delay things. You just don't know. The boat can sink bringing it over. There can be, retooling it, whatever. So you just do not know what those stages are until it's actually there in the hands. And that, I think that the thing is with what people tend to do with these things, they put them out there because they want someone to wait. Because they think, oh, if this is going to be ready in 2 months, don't buy that, buy one of our things, whatever it may be. And there's that temptation, isn't there, to do that? And I guess that's just, marketing and all those things.
You see, I think that's absolutely a fair way of looking at it. But I tell you why I not go against that. But if we look at the devil incarnate, i.e. Apple announced something, and normally within 2 weeks, it's normally available.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And those 2 weeks cause there's so much hype going on in those 2 weeks after it's been announced that the world wants one. Because for those 2 weeks, it is the thing to have. Everyone wants one, and they want it now, and they know that in 2 weeks' time, they can get one.
They can buy one. Yeah, that's a very fair point. But, we're talking about companies that have probably got a 5-year plan, so this is all roadmapped. Companies such as Behringer or Arturia, I'm not saying they don't, but... they're smaller, they can move more nimbly, and they kind of go, wow, look, somebody's coming with this great idea for design. Let's do it. And everybody gets excited and they do it. I'm imagining that's how things work. I mean, this may be complete fabrication on my part, but...
Yeah, I think you're probably right, but I think there's a certain point where you just have to go... You look at launches that are more immediate. Things like the boutiques, for example. They were announced, and within, it was less than a month, I think they're available. The refaces, when after the never-ending teasers that just dragged on and on and on, when they came out, I think they were available within a couple of weeks or something. I don't know. I would have loved it. And I think it would have been better for Arturia if they just said nothing about it. Or just, and then said, maybe now, if it is meant to be coming out September, October, announce it now and get people really excited for that month where everyone's, because let's just think about this. The Matrixbrute, when it was announced, do you remember how excited
everybody was going crazy for it, yeah. I mean, It was such a bold move. It's like, wow, you're making a massive monosynth. Fantastic.
Absolutely. Now, if you ask someone about the Matrixbrute, how much interest do they have now?
Well, they will. I mean, I suppose the thing is, once once there are ones out there and people start posting videos of having them and the reviews start to come in, then it will build it up again. But yeah, it does feel so. It does feel like that you get that kind of curve, and then you've sort of almost got to start again. And obviously, there's the danger, as in this case, that something like the DeepMind 12 comes along and everybody goes, oh my God, and it sort of breaks the internet for a while, and that's all people are talking about, But again, it's a very different thing, I suppose. Yeah,
they are different things. But I think the nice thing about them, for me, the Behringer compared to the Matrixbrute, there's two things going on here. First of all, having spent all of last week with the Q&A talking about the DeepMind, over the last week, some more videos have started coming out showing, kind of the particular features, and so you're getting to actually hear more of how it sounds.
Yeah.
And if you remember last week, I was basically saying, look, even if this just comes in at a fraction as good as it could be, for the money, it's great. And the more I hear of the Behringer, I have to say, it really is, for me, it really is a case of every single conversation I have to have about it comes in with, for the money, it's great. For the money, it's great. And in my head now, from what I've heard so far over the last week, it's now, for the money, it's good. It's gone down from being great to now, for the money, it's good. Because I'm getting more and more unimpressed by it every time I hear anything from it. Whereas with the Matrixbrute, the nice thing about it,
you haven't heard anything that has impressed. Yeah.
Well, but literally everything I'm starting to hear from the Matrixbrute is like you said, is getting me more excited, and it's making me, all of a sudden, I'm starting to see things and hear things that yes, this is fulfilling the promise. Whereas,
right. Oh, I see. Yeah. Here's another thought about this whole process. I mean, obviously, if you're doing a kind of teaser, and again with Arturia, presumably there's a point you use it in effect to gauge interest, because you've still got to press the button on that first production run, however many hundreds or thousands or whatever you're going to make. You think, well, are we going to make 500? And then people will go, where is mine? I want it. Because you don't want to make 20,000 of the things and then they all end up in a skip because they weren't that great or whatever, or that the interest isn't as much as you thought it was. Whereas I guess with something like the Behringer, from what we're seeing, reading on forums and what Uli's been posting on Gear Sluts and all that, it's like they're going to put a big order in and people will buy. So I'm guessing it's a similar principle for any manufacturer. You start off, you show something, you preview it, you see what the interest is like, you kind of go, well, maybe we need to tinker with a few things about it. And I can understand that process, and that makes sense because nobody can afford to make, 20,000 boxes of junk.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, as an industry, it is an absolute nightmare, and getting the business model right is nigh on impossible, to be fair. You've just got to go with whatever you think, because I think people need to remember this, exactly like you said, that as a business, the numbers you're talking about, even the kind of the best-selling synths of all time, really, in the bigger scheme of things, it's really not that big. And some of the synths that we now long for have such limited runs that we need to remember that these numbers are small. And yeah, if you're throwing a lot of money at something, it's going to be impossible to know the best way of doing it. It's going to be impossible to know the right time to do these things. And there are some great synths that have absolutely slipped under the radar because, for whatever reason, it hasn't quite been done right. There's great... I think I've told you before, I'm a big Solaris fan. And I love my Solaris. And it is a fantastic synth. But the gestation of that was so long that people just kind of lost interest and the world just kind of moved on.
Well, it was also expensive and it suffered quite a lot of manufacturing problems. So you could buy one and it wouldn't arrive for... I don't think you paid...
I waited forever for mine, yeah.
Yeah,
it's difficult. It's difficult. It's not. You're absolutely right. It's not easy, and I don't think there's a perfect way of doing it. It's just, in terms of the Matrixbrute, I just hope that it appears soon, and I just hope they get it onto market being right, if that makes sense. I just don't. I think if it comes onto market and is full of bugs and issues and whatever, that would be a real shame. It needs to come onto market and be spot on, basically. But fingers crossed it will be. And fingers
absolutely,
crossed
I'm thoroughly looking forward to that. Okay, well, I think that's probably about it for this week. I want to say, Ty, thank you so much for hanging in there and making it work. I think it's just video is too much for your network, so I'll just find some more perhaps more compromising photographs of you that I can throw up over it.
Honestly, I'll send you some. No, honestly, it's. I think it genuinely is to do with the Olympics. As I've said before, we're in the middle of nowhere, and if there's a lot going on, do you remember the last time it was the Euro?
Yes.
Champion football. If there's a lot of people that are kind of streaming in the village, I think so. So this will all be over next week. So hopefully next time I'll be fine again.
How's your mobile coverage? Have you got a 4G modem that you could use?
The mobile coverage. Actually, actually, as long as I'm not in this studio, if I'm in the other studio, then I've got 4G, but just not in this one. But
that might work. That might be as a fallback in the future. Anyway, Ty, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks everybody for hanging in there. I know sometimes it can be frustrating when you have technical issues, but that's the nature of live broadcasting, folks. If you're not the BBC and haven't got a whole team of people backing you up and satellites and all that sort of thing. But thanks for sticking in there. I should just say before we go, don't forget you can win a copy of iZotope Vocal Synth. All you have to do is tweet the hashtag TalkBoxLove and the hashtag Vocal Synth to @Sonicstate and @iZotope Inc. That's TalkBoxLove and Vocal Synth to @Sonicstate and @iZotope Inc. And you will be entered for next time's competition. Don't forget, next we're going up to the Leeds Modular Meet where the DeepMind 12 will be, along with I think some of the artists in the teasers, and various other people performing. We'll be streaming those live if the network is up. We've just been testing the system today. I mean, hopefully we're in the centre of Leeds, so we should get good 4G. I'm not going to trust the Wi-Fi. So on Saturday, from about 1 o'clock or so, there will be 15 minutes on the hour, roughly speaking, performances, and we'll be streaming those. We'll also be hopefully talking to people, some of the users who've had the DeepMind for a little while, plus various other people, artist interviews, rig rundowns, that sort of thing. So please do stay tuned. Leeds Modular Meet, it'll just show up in our YouTube live stream, so do stay tuned for that. So Ty, once again, thank you very much for joining us and hanging in there.
Thank you. Sorry about the technical.
That's all right. I appreciate it's the words that matter. So thank you, Ty. There you are, a static shot. That's it for this week. We'll see you next time. Thank you very much for watching. See you later. I've got a button that I press, but I can't remember which one it is. None of these, clearly.